Good afternoon. Welcome to Vanderbilt's Authors Room in the Central Library. I'm Mary Anne Caton. I work in the ACE team in the library, and I'm going to be interviewing Grace LaFrentz, who's a former Buchanan Fellow, about her experience with book club. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Laura Miller writes that the first book we fall in love with shapes us every bit as much as the first person we fall in love with. And this emotional attachment also affects choices that we make as we grow older. If you could start by telling us your name and how you got involved at Vanderbilt, how you found out about book club, we'll start that way.
Awesome, thank you. So yes, I'm Grace. I'm a junior here. I'm majoring in English in the College of Arts and Science and minoring in French. And I got involved, I heard about book club because I did the Buchanan Fellowship last semester. And I was with a cohort of 4 other students, and we did some research in special collections on the founding of the university, and we put together an exhibition. So I kind of got involved with the library through that, and then I heard about book club through that opportunity.
Thank you. What was the first book you fell in love with?
The first book I fell in love with, I think it was more of a series for me. I read the Pender Works by Jeannie Birdsall. Yes. Growing up as a kid, that was my absolute favorite series. I read all of the books. Also, they were kind of coming out while I was growing up. I was at kind of the perfect age, so I was growing along with the characters. So that was very formative in my childhood.
What made those books so memorable for you?
I think a lot of it was I identified with different aspects of several of the characters. So I'm an older sister, and there's an older sister in the book that's kind of responsible and practical and has to look over her younger sibling. So I identified with that. And then there's another sister who loves to read and to write. So I also felt like I was similar to her in several ways. So I just think the characters are very relatable, and also again, getting to grow with them over time was a fun experience for me.
Have you reread them? How do you feel about them now?
I have reread them because the final and 5th book came out in May of 2018, I think. So I reread them in anticipation of reading the final one. And it was actually just such a cool experience because I felt like I was kind of reliving my childhood, going back through the books. So that was super fun. And then also reading the last book, it was sort of like a second generation of kids now, but the older ones were grown up and they're in college and in relationships. And so it was just, again, cool to kind of see how things had changed since I read them last.
Was there a book that captured your imagination as a reader between those and, say, when you started in college? And can you tell me about that?
Yeah, sure. So before I came to college, one of my very favorite books was The Secret Life of Bees. It's still one of my favorite books by Sumant Kidd, but I think it really spoke to me before college because it's kind of about a teenage girl who sets off on her own and sort of goes on these adventures, and it's set in the South in the Civil Rights era, and I love historical fiction, so that was fun for me, but also just I think it probably captured my imagination in the sense that I was about to set off on my own in college and just sort of learning about a young woman having to define herself while meeting different people and having new experiences. I think probably spoke to me for those reasons. Yeah.
Well, you said you're an English and French major. Are there books that set you in those directions?
Yeah, so I've always loved English and I always knew I wanted to major in English, but I think being here, sort of what really got me into English was Toni Morrison. I took a class a few semesters ago, and her books, specifically we read The Bluest Eye first, so that's kind of the one that pops into my head first, but I think her books really showed me the way that writing can be beautiful and it can be literary and there can be great characters and narrative and just plot and things like that, but then the story can also be making such a powerful societal statement. So I think that really kind of solidified for me the power of fiction and not only being something beautiful that you can read and enjoy, but also something that can spur greater sort of social conversations. So yeah.
Was there one for French?
For French, so I didn't actually read this in French, but I want to. I read it in an English class last semester, but Madame Bovary is one of my favorite books. Yeah.
Great. Is there a book that you like to share with friends and family?
Yes, something I'm always telling my family things that I think that they should read, but something I've been saying recently a lot is I read Richard Powers' The Overstory, which won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction a few years ago, and kind of similar to why I like Toni Morrison, it's a book about trees, basically, but it's more largely about issues of climate change, so again, I think it's powerful in the way that it's something that's fictional and entertaining to read, but then also bringing to light larger issues. So I've been recommending that because I think it really kind of brings home sort of the urgency of the issue and then like things that people can do in their daily lives to help.
Can you tell me about a gift book that you remember?
A gift book. So my family went to Florence a few summers ago, Florence, Italy, and my aunt sent me a few books like to read before I went, which I thought was really awesome. And one of them was called Galileo's Daughter, and it's like a nonfiction book about Galileo's relationship. He had a daughter named Maria Celeste who was a nun, so it kind of incorporates some of the letters that she wrote him that survive, or yeah, I think the letters she wrote him. And that was just like a great gift book because it like got me in the mood to go to somewhere I'd never been before, but also like taught me about where I was going. So I thought that was a great gift. Yeah.
What are you reading now?
I got for Christmas, I got Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad, which I have started reading, and it's kind of it's about the American slavery and the Underground Railroad, but he does something really interesting because he like literalizes the railroad. So there's a literal like tunnel underground with a train going at it. So it's a really a kind of unique way to sort of talk about the issue of slavery. So that's what I'm currently reading.
If you could have 3 writers to invite to dinner, who would you invite?
That's hard. I feel like I would give a more practical answer for this one, because I think there's so many writers that we like don't know a lot about their background, or like from going from antiquity all the way up to the Renaissance, like, oh, well, did they write this, or like what was, so I'm thinking about, I feel like I would do maybe like Shakespeare, Homer, and Chaucer or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like I would pick people that we don't know a whole lot about their backgrounds, or that there's a lot of unanswered questions. So it's kind of practical. I would just want to get like the details down.
Cool. What will you read next?
My dad recommended me it's called Furious Hours. It's a book about Harper Lee had made notes for like on a murder trial that she was going to turn into another book, but she never did. So my dad told me that a woman went through and kind of like retraced her notes and retraced the sort of events of the murder trial, and I just wrote a book about that. So that sounds really cool, and I'm from Alabama, so I think it'd be interesting to learn that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing your book clubs.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me.